I am Dr. Kay Fontana, life force coach and grief recovery specialist, and I am deeply familiar with the pain of loss, having experienced many throughout my life. At just 9 years old, I lost my brother to cancer and witnessed my parents' immense grief, which was unbearable. Years later, my mother lost her battle with Alzheimer's, and then my father was diagnosed with cancer and passed away a week after his diagnosis. Most recently, in January 2023, I experienced the devastating loss of my husband and soulmate of 40 years due to multiple health issues. In between were countless other losses, including family members, friends, co-workers, beloved pets, and even finances. However, I turned my pain into my purpose and passion to share strategies to help you get through your darkest days and navigate the complexities of grief. This is the Healing Our Grieving Hearts podcast. Hello and welcome to my podcast where I explore the complexities of grief. In today's episode, we will focus on a topic that is often overlooked but important to address, and that is when grief is complicated. To start, I want to explain what complicated grief means. Complicated grief, also known as prolonged grief disorder, is a distinct and more intense form of grief that can occur after a significant loss. It goes beyond the typical feelings of sadness, sorrow, and longing that accompany the grieving process. Individuals experiencing complicated grief may find it challenging to come to terms with the loss, experience persistent feelings of intense sadness, have difficulty accepting the reality of the death, and struggle to adjust to life without the deceased person. Complicated grief can interfere with daily functioning, relationships, and overall well-being, leading to prolonged emotional distress and difficulty in finding a sense of closure and peace. It often requires professional help and support to navigate through the complexities of these intense emotions. There are several triggers and factors that can contribute to the development of complicated grief, making the grieving process more challenging and prolonged for some individuals. Some common triggers include a sudden or unforeseen loss, whether stemming from a tragic accident, suicide, accidental overdose, a natural disaster, or a sudden onset of severe illness, has the potential to amplify emotions of shock, disbelief, and profound grief. These unexpected events can disrupt the sense of normalcy and security in one's life, leaving individuals struggling with intense and overwhelming emotions that can further complicate the grieving process. In such circumstances, the absence of closure or the abrupt nature of the loss may impede the individual's ability to come to terms with their grief and work through their emotions effectively. This heightened emotional turmoil often requires specialized support and interventions to help navigate the complex and challenging journey of grief. Another is the presence of a complex or challenging relationship with the deceased individual, marked by unresolved conflicts, unspoken emotions, or feelings of guilt can significantly complicate the grieving process and affect the journey towards emotional healing. When there are lingering issues left unaddressed or unresolved within the relationship, it creates a burden of emotional weight that intensifies the grieving experience. This internal conflict and emotional distress may manifest in feelings of regret, anger, or profound sadness, making it difficult for the grieving individual to find closure and come to terms with their loss. Addressing these difficult emotional dynamics is essential for untangling the complexities of grief and facilitating a path towards healing and acceptance. Experiencing a series of losses in close succession or facing cumulative grief from different sources can place an immense strain on an individual's coping mechanism, potentially overwhelming their ability to process emotions effectively. When a person is confronted with multiple losses within a short period of time, each loss compounds the intensity of their grief, leaving them emotionally drained and struggling to navigate the complex layers of bereavement. The cumulative impact of these losses can disrupt their sense of stability, shake their foundations of support, and challenge their resilience, making it challenging to find comfort and healing amidst the weight of their grief. In these situations, the combination of grief from various events may create a mix of complicated feelings or emotions that require personalized support and interventions to help untangle the complex feelings and start the journey toward emotional healing. A lack of adequate support from family members, friends, or the broader community can intensify feelings of isolation, loneliness, and distress, amplifying the challenges faced by individuals in navigating their grieving process. When individuals do not have a strong network of emotional support to rely on during times of loss, they may find themselves wrestling with their emotions alone, without the comfort and understanding of those around them. The absence of empathetic listeners, compassionate shoulders to lean on, or a sense of belonging and connection can intensify feelings of isolation and emotional turmoil, delaying the grieving individual's ability to process their grief in a healthy and constructive way. Recognizing the importance of a supportive network during times of loss is important in providing the necessary emotional framework and nurturing environment for individuals to navigate their grief journey with resilience and healing. Previous traumas, losses, or unresolved grief from past experience also have the potential to resurface and interact with the present loss, creating a complex array of emotions that can complicate the grieving process and increase emotional distress. When individuals carry unresolved emotional wounds from earlier events, the current loss may trigger these dormant feelings, intensifying their grief reactions and clouding the lines between past and present pain. The multiple layers of sadness and distress can create complex emotions, making it challenging for individuals to address each area of grief effectively. This merging of past and present emotional baggage stresses the interconnected nature of our experiences and emotions, highlighting the importance of acknowledging and processing past traumas in conjunction with current grief for holistic healing and emotional well-being. Losing someone who played a central role in one's life, especially if they were a primary caregiver or a major source of emotional support, can bring about intense feelings of emptiness, helplessness, and a disruption of one's sense of self. When that person was the one who offered care, love, guidance, or stability, their absence can leave a hole that seems impossible to fill, making one feel adrift in a mix of complicated emotions. The loss of this foundational relationship can shake them to the core, leaving them feeling lost and questioning who they are without that important figure in their life. Dealing with this deep sense of emptiness and identity shift can make the grieving process even tougher, adding extra layers of emotional complexity and making it hard to find purpose without that central support system. It's crucial to acknowledge and work through these deep emotions to navigate the complex path of grief and move towards rediscovering a sense of self and wholeness after such a significant loss. The final trigger is for people who struggle with coping skills, emotional balance, or existing mental health issues may find it harder to handle the powerful emotions and distress that come with grief, which can increase the chances of facing complicated grief. When someone has limited ways to cope or has trouble managing their emotions, the overwhelming feelings of loss and sadness can worsen their existing challenges, making the grieving process even more emotionally turbulent. Additionally, existing mental health conditions like anxiety, depression, or post traumatic stress disorder can mix with grief, making symptoms more intense and disrupting the person's ability to cope effectively with their loss. With all these factors coming together, it can create a tough situation where it's harder for individuals to navigate their grief and find emotional balance. Recognizing these difficulties and seeking specialized support, whether through therapy, counseling, or other forms of help, become essential in assisting individuals with existing vulnerabilities as they navigate the complexities of grief and work towards reducing the risk of complicated grief reactions. Recognizing these triggers and factors can help individuals, as well as their loved ones and support systems, better understand the complexities of grief and provide appropriate interventions as needed. Recently, I had a conversation with an acquaintance whose mother is demonstrating signs of complicated grief. She lost her husband and a daughter years ago, but is in a state of isolation and states she doesn't want to live anymore, although the thought of dying scares her. The family wants her to talk with someone, but she refuses to see anyone or seek professional help. They have tried everything to engage her in conversations and to open up about her feelings and emotions, but the mother is resisting. She is adamant that she doesn't want or need any help. The woman loves to read, but refuses to read anything that appears to be a self-help book. So I recommended to the daughter and son-in-law the idea of a gratitude exercise. In this game, they start by each sharing one thing they are thankful for that day. The following day, they can step it up by each reflecting on two things they are grateful for. By centering on gratitude, even if it's just a single thing, one can redirect their focus away from negative emotions. So I'm looking forward to hearing back from this individual, and I should see her on Sunday. During a recent conversation with a friend of mine, she shared her interactions with a relative who lost an adult child almost 14 years ago. The relative's prolonged grief has manifested in a series of behaviors that have strained relationships with family. In addition to accusing family members of actions without any reason, she has maintained a daily ritual of visiting her daughter's gravesite since her funeral 14 years ago. Furthermore, her decision to preserve her daughter's room exactly as it was on the day of her passing serves as a heartbreaking symbol of her unwillingness to let go and move forward. These actions reflect the profound impact of her grief, which has not only influenced her daily interactions, but has also created tension within the family dynamic. The complex mix of grief, sadness, and memories that the family member is caught up in shows how deep and long-lasting the grieving process can be. It demonstrates the different ways people deal with profound loss and remember their loved ones when grief is complicated. Both of these individuals are going through a type of grief that goes beyond the usual way that people mourn. We all understand that grief doesn't follow a strict schedule because when we lose someone dear to us, the impact can linger for a long time. However, if their actions start moving in a different direction than expected, it might signal that something deeper is going on. When we notice these changes in behavior, it gives us a clue that there are underlying emotional issues at play. By taking notice of and dealing with these behaviors, we can uncover emotional struggles that need specialized support to tackle effectively. Addressing these signs early on can help shine a light on unresolved emotional pain and pave the way for healing and moving forward in a healthy manner. However, these signals are not always recognized early on and can manifest 6 months or years later after death occurs. Approaching prolonged grief disorder, also known as complicated grief, requires a thoughtful and multifaceted approach that addresses the complex emotional and psychological aspects of grieving. So here are several strategies that can be helpful in navigating prolonged grief disorder. One is to encourage the individual to seek support from mental health professionals, such as therapists, counselors, or psychologists who specialize in grief counseling and complicated grief. These professionals can provide guidance, emotional support, and therapeutic interventions tailored to their specific needs. Another is suggest joining support groups or bereavement groups where individuals can connect with others who are experiencing similar challenges. Sharing experiences and emotions in a group setting can provide a sense of understanding, community, and validation. Encourage self-care practices that prioritize physical, emotional, and mental well-being. This can include activities like mindfulness, meditation, exercise, proper nutrition, and engaging in hobbies or activities that bring comfort and joy. Consider recommending therapeutic techniques such as cognitive behavioral therapy, which is CBT, mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, or eye movement desensitization and reprocessing, EMDR therapy, which have shown effectiveness in addressing complicated grief. Those techniques are offered by trained professionals in those areas. Encourage the individual to create and engage in rituals that honor the memory of their loved one, such as lighting candles, planting a tree, writing letters, or creating a memory box. These rituals can provide comfort and a sense of connection to the deceased. I mentioned many of these ideas last week on episode 8. Suggest engaging in expressive art therapies such as art therapy, music therapy, or writing therapy as a means of processing and expressing complex emotions that may be difficult to articulate verbally. Help the individual develop healthy coping strategies to manage overwhelming emotions, stress, and triggers associated with grief. This can include relaxation techniques, deep breathing exercises, journaling, or creating a coping toolbox of activities that provide comfort. Encourage the individual to explore and address any unresolved emotions, guilt, or regret related to the loss. Working through these complex emotions with the support of a therapist can facilitate healing and promote emotional resolution. By integrating a combination of these approaches and personalized interventions, individuals struggling with prolonged grief disorder can embark on a journey of healing, self-discovery, and ultimately find a sense of acceptance and peace amidst their grief. The mission of Healing Our Grieving Hearts is to provide holistic healing by guiding individuals through a process of grief recovery, discovering their purpose, and integrating energy healing and spiritual support for complete well-being. For more information on how to benefit from grief healing modalities that I offer, go to my website at www.healingourgrievinghearts.com, where you can also schedule a complimentary grief breakthrough session. To follow me on Facebook, go to facebook.com/k.fontana. Thank you for listening to this episode of Healing Our Grieving Hearts podcast. Remember, you are not alone in your grief, and your experiences and emotions are valid. Join me next Saturday at 10 a.m. Arizona time as we continue to explore the human experience and grief and the physical manifestations of loss in the body. Until then, be kind to yourself.